This was meant to be Pakistan's house party, right? A grand celebration with their friends all back home for the first time in, more than a decade. But New Zealand showed up, complained about the gauche decor, drank everything in sight, spilled spaghetti bolognese all over their brand new cream carpet, and then proceeded to fornicate violently in the master bedroom. I mean, it started so well for Pakistan's comeback. Their leggy got a wicket with the wrong end, and their young fast bowler dismissed one of the best batters in the world. All was right in the world. This was going to be awesome. Except for the fact that after that, it all really went to shit. Yeah. They couldn't get out Will Young. And then you add Tom Latham to that, and then Glenn Phillips came in to slog at the end. And this was a large total on a wicket that seemed to have a touch of variability and some hold in the surface. And then Pakistan batted. In fact, is that the right term? They were out there and they had their kits on, but they seemed to be waiting for the innings to start. And I think they began somewhere around the 18 over mark. It's tough to chase 320 when you give yourself that kind of a handicap. And somewhere right now, Babar Azam is still out in the middle playing dot balls, looking for his chance to attack.
From Virat Kohli's MCG 6 against Pakistan to Bumrah's stump-destroying Yorker to Ollie Pope. Incredible things happen on the cricket ground. We also get iconic lines off it, like Siraj saying, "I only believe in Jassie Bye." There are so many incredible moments that cricket fans just never forget. And now you can wear them on your chest. Free Hit Gear has launched a line of amazing t-shirts and hoodie designs. Passionate fans in India can order through their website, freehitgear.com. While fans abroad can use Free Hit Gear on the Etsy store to have items delivered to them. Order now with the code GOODAREAS, all one word, to get a limited time 15% discount, and you can wear a t-shirt like this one right here.
Welcome to the scoreboard. I am Jared Kimber. I was forced to watch that game. I actually quite enjoyed the first innings. Then Pakistan came to bat, and whoa, not particularly good. What we do on the scoreboard is we do a little bit of analysis, and then we go through your questions. We're not doing massively long ones for the Champions Trophy, but we've got some things, some stories from that. If you want to go a little bit more in depth in some of these topics, perhaps the best way to head over is to goodareas.co. And of course, there's also our main YouTube channel that you can find us over there as well. But let's get started with this. He says optimistically. Will Young's, I thought this was a fantastic innings. The other Kiwi players did not seem to know how to score. And I probably got stuck a couple of times, I think it's fair to say, where he wasn't sure how to get out of it. But if you look at this overall, no one was scoring in this period of the game for New Zealand, and he was doing really well. And then he had this period, and the blip around when he was on 99, which wasn't massive, but again, at that stage, I think they wanted to kick on a little bit, and he got a little bit stuck. But this was such a good innings from a guy who's, he's like Dante in Clerks. He's got a lot of, I wasn't even supposed to be here today, like just understudy. What a fantastic innings by someone whom, if New Zealand go on to win the final, may not even be playing later in the tournament. I mean, that's the life of Will Young, to come in and do something magnificent and then not be around later when you need them. I thought this was the most interesting thing, though. When they were 150 for 3, he had 60% of their runs. And if you look at it, like, some of these were extras as well. Like, he was so dominant without, it wasn't like it was a Brendan McCullum innings or like a Abhishek Sharma type thing, right? Where you were like, oh yeah, well, of course he scored this percentage of their runs because he's hitting. He was batting normally. It's just that the rest of New Zealand were not. And by this stage, probably between 150 and 170 for 3, I was like, they're so on top at this point. Because unless something magical happens and Pakistan managed to string together 2 or 3 wickets in a row, they're going to stumble their way to 285, 290, 300. And that is not a particularly easy chase on a wicket that had a little bit of variable bounce. I think it was variable from one end more than the other. And also the ball was, getting purchased for the spinners. Like, there was assistance for the bowlers on show. And they were kind of sleepwalking their way towards 280 to 320 because of Will Young. I just thought it was such a good innings. And it may get forgotten in the fact that Latham made runs and then Phillips made runs and then the way that Pakistan batted. But I don't think this was an easy wicket to specifically bat against the new ball, and Will Young was the only person really in the entire game who made it look like that. But the second most important thing here was what I'm calling the Kiwi squeeze, which sounds like a really bad thing that you would find on the internet. But this was an extraordinary start to the game. And I think we have to go through, quite a few different, what would you say, reasons for this. Like, I don't think it was an accident that it happened the way that it did. But if you go through and you have a look, the first thing was that because they scored a little bit of extra runs, I think Pakistan were a little bit more apprehensive at the start. The wicket did change. I think the inconsistent bounce probably came through a little bit more. We see this sometimes, that the ball is just a little bit, seems to do a little bit more under lights, or doesn't come on as sharply under light as it does in the day. There was some serious seam movement as well. I think we have to remember all that, and we also have to probably factor in that Babar Azam was the only person who was supposed to be opening in this game, right? Babar Azam is already a replacement, so they had 2 replacement openers out there. You have to go up against Matt Henry. If we put all that to aside for a moment, I just thought New Zealand bowled really smart, good angles in the way that they were attacking, trying to hit the wicket, trying to set up Babar Azam for that LBW. Trying to go across the left-hander early on, trying to trap Mohammad Rizwan around the top of off stump. All these different things they did. But as much as I was impressed by their bowling, and I was, and that's a really important thing, because I said that Matt Henry kind of had to stand up for them to be a realistic, title-winning chance in this tournament. The other thing that I thought was magnificent was their fielding. And it wasn't just the quality of their fielding, although we will get to that in a moment. It was the fact that they had this very clever sort of backward point was in a little bit. They had point back on the edge of the circle, and they had cover point. So they had 3 fielders not that far from each other, and they essentially were bowling just outside off stump, and then backing the fact that their fielders were going to save some of the boundaries. And I don't know how many early runs they saved in there, but Glenn Phillips was fielding at 4 different positions at once. He was just absolutely everywhere. And then eventually he takes that great catch. So that whole thing of them putting pressure back on was absolutely just massive and such an important part of this game. Yes, the pitch changed a little bit. Yes, the bowlers bowled well. But if you get a couple through the field early on, maybe you feel different. Pakistan played some really good shots, and New Zealand just weren't giving them any runs for them. The next thing that I thought was most important is the true value in 300 runs chases. So this was Varun and Shyam were looking this up during the game, and there's an obvious reason why the graphic looks like this. But you've got your 2 anchors here who are basically just marginally worse than par when it comes to their value in 300 run chases. So they're not bad, right? This isn't horrible, but they don't give you any positive value. And that's because both of them have an issue where they don't actually put a lot of pressure back on. Occasionally they can attack a spinner, and there was some very good early drives from Babar Azam, but they don't really put a lot of pressure back on. And so if Pakistan lose any wickets, they have an issue. This is what Babar Azam does when they're chasing over 300. That's an issue, because then anytime a team scores a decent total against you, you basically need Babar Azam to make runs. And for those of you who didn't watch the entire game, Babar Azam got injured the second ball of the game. So he went to field a ball out on the boundary. I can't believe that this tournament started with a 3. Is there anything more Champions Trophy than starting this tournament with a 3? A hard run 3. But he goes to pick the ball up, and something happens. We originally thought it might have been his knee, but it looks like now it was his back. It meant that he didn't field as much as he should have. So his innings had to be delayed because it was an internal injury, not an external injury, all that sort of good stuff. And so he came on later. So by the time he came out to bat, I think he was at number 4. I think it was number 4, wasn't it? It was after Rizwan. They were already out of the game by the time Babar Azam actually came out to bat. Like, if he batted like normal, that would have been fine. But he couldn't bat like normal because he couldn't run. And more importantly for him, he couldn't really use his feet to the spinners. And this is where the Babar Azam experience was at its absolute worst. Forget all these numbers, although don't, because these numbers are very important. But Babar Azam is facing Michael Bracewell and Glenn Phillips, 2 part-time off spinners. He's Babar Azam, and he was getting singles and turning the ball. And why you're looking for singles anyway when the bloke at the other end can't move, I don't know. But he's getting singles, and then allowing for Zaman to basically have to slog against spinners. And Glenn Phillips didn't always get it right, but Michael Bracewell was like, if I just bowl slow and wide to him, what's he going to do? He can't use his feet. The ball there was some purchase in that. I actually thought New Zealand probably missed a trick in this period. They should have had Bracewell at one end, and they should have gone with Nathan Smith at the other, bowling or Willow Rook bowling some short stuff at him. Because if you got a bad back, but regardless of that, the one weapon that Pakistan should have had in the 300 chase wasn't particularly there. And I think there was a period where Pakistan was like, was he 17 off 20, or he was going okay for a little while, and then he just got completely stuck because he had no back. And at the other end, he had no backup, right? Like, it was just really, really bad. But you can see here, also unfortunate for Pakistan to lose the player who was probably going to be their most help in this. But we do have to talk about Babar Azam, who, honestly, and I've made a video for the main channel where I sort of make this joke, but someone who works in cricket contacted me at one stage and said, is Babar Azam just trying to make sure that they don't lose this game too badly? It's not where you want to be, is it? Like, obviously that was not the case. But you were watching it going, I mean, my first thought was Sunil Gavaskar in the 1975 World Cup, where he just went, oh, this is ridiculous, Chase. We can't do this. He just didn't look like he was able to score boundaries. He wasn't trying to attack. He never really seemed to put any pressure back on New Zealand in any way. And then when he battled with Zaman, that was really bad. But then later on, when they got other hitters come in, even when those hitters were scoring quickly, he didn't decide to try and help from his end. He just got them on. He played a couple of dot balls. He played 1 million dot balls and then got them back on strike. It was a pathetic innings, really. Like, he must be furious with having, I mean, as furious as we were for having put us through it. This is his strike rate versus spin, though. So this is his golden period where his strike rate versus spin was 88. At this stage, there were questions about his T20 cricket. There weren't really questions about anything else. If you could score at 88 against spin, especially when you mostly face it in the middle overs, you're doing very, very well. Since September of 2023, it's been 68. That's a 6 and an 8. And today he was down at 64. This was a wicket where there was a little bit in it. Like, I don't think it was straightforward. And I think the best shot against spin in this wicket, and we'll come to this later, was the sweep shot. I get all of that. You're Babar Azam. You can't be going at a strike rate of 64 when, what was it? I think by the 10th over, they already needed over 7 runs and over. You just can't do that. I mean, he did do it, so apparently you can do it, but you shouldn't do it. Let's have a little bit of look. We just talked about the sweep shots, so let's look at Tom Latham here. Really good innings from him. This was kind of almost an ideal match situation and wicket for Tom Latham, because it did favour the sweep shot. But he could also start slow because Will Young had them scoring at a reasonable rate and on a tricky surface, which allowed him for a long period of time to play within himself. And also, it was a wicket where he could occasionally find a boundary, which meant that he was never massively behind the rate. It wasn't the best start, but it was also a wicket where you wanted someone like Tom Latham or Kane Williamson to just chip the ball around as long as there were runs coming from the other end, which there was for most of that time. I still think having Williamson, Mitchell, and you can throw Young in as well, but Young and Latham all together can be a problem. This was not the kind of wicket where that was a problem. And then you can see towards the end that he did actually pick up quite well. You probably would have preferred Latham to go out rather than Young at the period he did, but Latham still did a good enough job, and he's a very good runner between wickets. Pakistan lost a lot of boundaries because they kept bringing their fielders in about 5 or 10 meters, and the reason they did that was because Latham kept stealing twos, and it meant that New Zealand scored extra boundaries. We don't often think about those two things being linked, but they really were. But I just want to look at the next part of Latham's innings here, which I really like. So 25% of his runs essentially were from the sweep shot. You got another 23 from a flick. You've also got a pull shot and a scoop. Why am I showing you all those? Well, let's have a look at this map of where he scored his runs today. Come on, this is great. This is where he scored his runs today. This isn't just the sweep shot, by the way, because he did a scoop down here I reckon he got another pull shot, probably fine of the fielder. And he had that big flick for 6, which was probably, what, over here somewhere as well. Like, this was ridiculous. Absolutely. He scored all of his runs in one place. Basically, Tom Latham didn't want to score anywhere today where his ass wasn't pointing. That's the ass zone. He just scored everything in the ass. I thought it was really smart batting from him. He's a limited player. We all know that. And he did what he needed to do. And then he got himself into a situation where he wasn't scoring so slow that when Phillips came in, Phillips had to go straight away. Just absolutely, he allowed Phillips to get himself in a little bit. Will Young played a bigger part, obviously, in that. And then Phillips could go boom at the end with some great hitting. Well done to Tom Latham. There's one part of this game that probably won't get talked about very much now, especially with the way that Babar Azam batted and the two guys making runs for New Zealand and New Zealand start with the ball. The 32nd, the 34th, and the 36th over, Rauf bowled a really good spell. And I'm just showing you here the Crick Info card of what happened in the 34th over directly. But why this was so important is that Rauf had got his rhythm. The previous over, he almost bowled Will Young, who I think off the middle of the bat hit the ball to third man. It was so fast, and I think it kept a little bit low. And I was like, oh, this is legit. He bowls a dot ball to start the next over. He then has a wide that was down the leg side, which he appealed for a caught behind. It was, and they reviewed it. It was nowhere near it. But the reason it was nowhere near it, Tom Latham, is because he was about a minute behind it. The next ball, he goes with another short ball, and it's dropped. It would have been a tough catch at mid-wicket. Based on today and today only, New Zealand would have taken that catch. You then get 2 more dots. There was a 4 and a 2, but one of these dots, and I can't remember which one it was now, was a short ball at the body, which was knocked up in the air. Latham had no idea where it was. It could easily have been hit to the wicketkeeper or back to the bowler, and instead ended up on the crease and spinning back. I wouldn't say it was close to bowling Latham, but like he could have bowled Latham because he was so unaware of where the ball was. The next over, again, Rauf, he just had the rhythm. They needed a wicket in the 32nd or the 34th over. I think by the time they got the wicket, it was the 37th or the 38th. And the issue with getting a wicket at that point was all the sting was out of that spell, and the other seamers just weren't at Rauf's level. And why this is so important is you just can't, in modern ODI cricket, you cannot allow people not to lose wickets anymore. Even Tom Latham by the end, as we showed you on this before, even Tom Latham towards the end is scoring at a really decent rate. And so you end up in a position here where suddenly they are well ahead of where you need them to be, and you aren't taking any wickets. Once Glenn Phillips gets a couple away, you're done, right? That middle period is so important, and it's where Pakistan have been at their absolute best. And to be honest, I thought Rauf bowled absolutely well enough to get a wicket in this spell, but he didn't. And because of that, there was just, I thought at that stage when he finished, even when he finished this over, not even though he had one more afterwards, I was like, they're just going to get to 300 now, right? And because of some good batting towards the end, they actually went beyond that as well. Let's talk about the one good thing that happened for Pakistan today. Abrar Ahmed, I thought it was very fascinating that they used him so early. I think it was because Will Young is a right-hander and Devon Conway doesn't like the ball spinning back into him, is my guess. But I thought he just bowled really well. This is Shadab Khan in the last World Cup. We understand that Shadab Khan is a gun fielder and can give you, certainly some usage and some variability with his batting. But his bowling, as we've talked about before, that groin injury, I just don't think he's ever going to be able to bowl at the level that he used to. Unless he fixes the groin. And so he's basically just been pushing out the leg spinners. Abrar Ahmed has only played, 8 ODIs, and this doesn't include him bowling today. So far, he's looked a lot better. Devon Conway didn't pick the wrong one. I thought he bowled some really good deliveries all the way through. He now has to have the greatest tournament of all time to be able to come back from, to be able to help Pakistan. But he did actually look like they had a legitimate spinner who could help. What's really fascinating for me is that he just hasn't been involved, all that much. This was, I think, his 16th white ball game. We've seen him a bit in Test cricket. Looked to me today like he was a white ball bowler. I've seen him bowl a little bit in the one days recently, a little bit in T20 cricket. He looks okay. the other thing I want to talk about is the fact that he was involved in the first 10 overs. So Pakistan really out-Pakistan themselves to start this game. We had fighter jets tickling the eardrums. I had the volume of my TV up way too loud when the fighter jets came over, and I'm still struggling to get my hearing back. There was a 3. The fielder got injured because of their 3. He happened to be their hero from 8 years ago. Their opening bowlers looked almost as flat as their pitches sometimes can be, or that this pitch hinted it was going to be. It was not that flat. And then a leg spinner who runs in like an offie decided to take an early wicket for them. And then one of their fast bowlers woke up. And I was thinking at the time, that's like their entire tournament in like a 10-over period. And it was awesome. It was exactly what you wanted of Pakistan cricket. It was wild. It was weird. It wasn't exactly what you expected. And it was, when you think about it, the only part of the day when Pakistan were actually in this match, and it was a 50-50 contest. For the rest of the time, New Zealand pretty much were either just in front or way in front. I mean, you can see here just how that sort of early period was. You could say the 17th over as well was the other one when Harris Rauf got the breakthrough of Mitchell. But realistically, New Zealand were just building, and this is what New Zealand wanted to do, and especially this period in here. And Pakistan let them do it, and then it went very poorly, very, very poorly. Is it possible the Babar Azam is still out there at the moment, still struggling to get off the strike, even though it's just, I don't know, the children of the ground staff who are currently bowling to him? Not good. All right, that's the end of the scoreboard part of the show. So we will take a quick break here, and when we come back from that, we will have more of this kind of thing and more of all sorts of things. There'll be things everywhere to give you. So if you've got any comments, super chats are obviously the best way to go, but I'll try and go through as many comments as I can as well here on the scoreboard. Remember, like, subscribe, do all those things. I'll see you in a minute. As an international cricket journalist for 10 years, I tell you what, I have got a collection of international SIM cards that I will never truly understand. Now I find there is a company called Sally who gives you an eSIM, and it makes it all so much easier. So if you're planning on making any trips, download your Sally eSIM app, and you can also get a 15% discount if you say good areas, all one word, at checkout. Travel like a pro with your Sally eSIM today. Oh, that was the bit I was supposed to actually take away, wasn't it? We've got a super chat from Genius Genie. And Varun, just before we get to all the chats, if you see any good questions as well, Varun, we've only got a couple of super chats, so you can load a couple extra in. We'll do about 10 or 15 minutes of your questions. That Babar batting hurt my eyes, brain, heart, etc. Lungs, liver. If you can find a part of your body it didn't hurt, Genius Genie, you've done well. New Zealand genuinely looked like they were the home team, and Pakistan seemed like they never played in that land ever. Also, Latham's ass. Yeah, it's good ass. They did, and I think Bayram, was it on one of the shows we talked about where Bayram was saying that Pakistan has actually played a lot of cricket. Sorry, New Zealand's actually played a lot of cricket in Pakistan, which is funny because at one stage they weren't going to play any cricket there. Not always with their main team, but a few of their players. But they did just look like they were handling the conditions a lot better, right? Like, all things considered, I thought they played really well. It would be interesting to know how this game goes if the toss goes the other direction, because I think New Zealand would have done exactly what Pakistan would have done. Everyone was worried about the dew, and obviously on this ground, generally you do want to bat second. So it made sense. But in this particular case, obviously, no, it was the opposite. And I wonder if that's the ICC effect. When the ICC start getting involved with grounds, they just slightly change how they are. But it's worth looking at going forward for this one. Hari says, a general layman question. Fakir Saman tried to stop that ball. Was the method wrong? Just because I believe sometimes the wrong method of fielding can end up with an injury. It's a good question. I mean, Hari, you generally don't want to bend at your back, right? So you want to bend at your knees rather than your back. It's what we're taught as kids, right? Like, don't lift with your knees, not with your back. He did bend over a little bit, but having said that, I think I'm trying to remember the incident. I thought he did have slightly bent knees as well. So I don't know if it was just a case of he bent himself over. It could just be a freak injury. So I wouldn't be too concerned with that. But I'd have to go back. But the fact that I didn't think it was a back injury probably suggests that he didn't bend that poorly. But I'd have to go back and have a look at it again. Tom Latham, underrated. I think he's pretty accurately rated as a test player. As a one-day player, let's have a look. He averages 34 with a strike rate of 85. I mean, he's fine. I think if he played in another side that didn't have as many guys who move as slowly as he does, like as many other anchor-type batters, I actually think Tom Latham would be more suited. I think the issue with Tom Latham is that they've got other guys that do his role and quite often better than him, and they have other gears. Like, let's say Mitchell played the Latham innings today, and at the end of that innings, you had Mitchell and Phillips in together, right? Like, that's what we're talking about. And so Latham is very good at doing what his job is. It's interesting to me that he's never averaged that high either, because he's a good enough bat to do that. But they also like him for the spin in the middle. So, you know, he certainly did his job today. Abdullah says, this is the second time that Pakistan has gotten hurt by an opener getting injured. Do you think this increases the chance of ICC looking into substitutes? No. I don't think the ICC will be the first ones to do substitutes. If substitutes come into cricket, it will be one of the T20 leagues. The reason they're not doing it at the moment, and I promise you this, is because if you have substitutes, you actually need more players, which means more players need to get paid. And so it will cost owners more, it will cost teams more and everything else. Eventually, we're going to get into a situation, Abdullah, as you say, where the only reason to not have substitutes in cricket at this point is because we've never had them, right? And it's made the game really interesting. And I love the fact that a number 11 batter has to go up against the best bowler in the world. Like, I love that Richard Hadley bowls to Mike Whitney. And, was it Chris Silverwood? No, Chris Pringle? Was it Chris Pringle against Bruce Reed? Like, I love those moments. But this really affected this game, right? Babar Azam should not have been out there batting. And yes, we've had some great moments with injured batters before, and you can always make the choice with an injured batter. You could still go out with him. If Gordon Greenidge had a limp, you're probably more likely to play him, right? But yeah, I think when it comes down to it, we will get there, but I don't think we'll get there because of days like today. It will be a T20 league bringing it in, would be my guess. Akash says, how big a role did the 2 drop catches and the non-review that was out off Latham in the Tri-Series play in tonight's game? Latham scored a match-defining ton. I mean, it probably plays a role in that he feels more confident, right? And, he's not a player who's made a lot of runs in one-day cricket. Like, it's not his... If they had a better player or to fill that role, he probably wouldn't have played many one days. How many has he played? So he's played 88 tests and he's played 150 ODIs. So I think with that in mind, you probably say that he might not be involved. So I'm just trying to have a look. So the last, so giving him confidence in the last game probably plays a small role. I actually think that the things that helped him today was Will Young scoring all the runs, right? Like Will Young was doing so well for them. And it was a pitch that really helped to play the sweep shot on. But I think Baba got stuck because he couldn't play the sweep shot, right? So it was a particular wicket that I think helped that shot more than anything else. And I think looking back on it, will Pakistan not go, how is it possible for someone to make 100 and score most of their runs behind their ass? Like at a certain point, don't you have to say, should we not have just bowled really wide to him for a long period of time and just seen what that did? Raul says, what is the issue with Babar? Is it just that he can't score fast or is it his approach? Well, he used to score way faster against spinners. So I would assume it's a confidence thing. He seems to, when we did the video on him, there's a real issue with the way he plays left arm finger spin now. And this is my guess. And this happened with Virat Kohli, I reckon, as well. And I think there was someone else I was looking at not that long ago. Quite often, when you have a problem with... Kevin Peterson, I think, was another one. Quite often, when you have a problem with spin, it's usually one kind of spin, right? So, I don't know, maybe it's wrist spin, maybe it's left arm finger spin, maybe it's off spin, whatever it may be. And then you try and correct that, and it causes problems with other kinds of spin. So my guess with Babar Azam is that he has a bit of an issue with left arm finger spin. And, if you go back to the video we made on him roll on the main site, you'll be able to have a look at that. And he's probably changing his game. And in order to change his game against spin, he's probably also changed slightly how he plays off spin. Like there would be a subliminal or a subconscious kind of change there as well. And so you end up not being able to play either of them. And I think that's the issue that he has with spin. I actually thought he looked okay against seam. He played some really nice shots that went to mid-off, and through mid-off, one through the covers. Played a couple of nice shots on the offside, but he kept picking the fielders. But he never looked in any way like he was trying to upset New Zealand. And that is one issue that Babar has always had, right? Bart is a serious fan. Is Glenn Phillips currently the best death over batter in the world? Who would you have up there? You'd probably have David Miller would still be pretty high. Who else do you have? I feel like I'm missing someone else really, really obvious. I mean, obviously Heinrich Klaasen, if he's still there, if you count him. His recent form's been a bit patchy, but I'm not sure Glenn Phillips has gone past him. Do many other teams... It feels like a spot that's really struggling a little bit at the moment. Like, it would be Butler, but Butler's batting further up the order because England's not very good. Maxwell, but is Maxwell a great death batter, Varun? Like, as in, Maxwell's probably better than Phillips in the middle. I mean, definitely better. He's good at the death in certain matchups, whereas I think Phillips is always good at the death. I feel like I'm missing someone else really, really obvious in this. Yeah, but I think those are the guys off the top of my head anyway. Hassan says, same injury wrecked the ODI team post South Africa series. Yeah, I mean, I talked about that. They ended up with 2 makeshift openers today, right? Like, it does change the side. So I think you have to forgive Pakistan a little bit for how bad they were, while also saying they were still way shitter than they should have been, even with substitutes coming in, even with New Zealand fielding well, even with New Zealand bowling well, even with the field. I still think you have to be like, what were they, 22 for 2 or whatever. So I do think that changed the ODI team. I thought they were playing very good cricket against teams that weren't trying very hard. My big concern, Hassan, was when they lost. I didn't think they played particularly well against Zimbabwe at times. So I didn't have them rated as highly as I think other people did. Vignesh says, among centre countries, how do modern New Zealand batters consistently play spin better? Is it due to the home conditions of not having prodigious bounce? Do they play spin better? Like, I would say South Africa probably played spin better than New Zealand did for a long period of time. Like Heinrich Klaasen is probably a better player against spin than anyone in the New Zealand team, I would thought, in white ball cricket. England had Morgan, Root for a long period of time. Root's a better player of spin than the New Zealanders. Morgan, in limited overs cricket, was a really good player against spin. Australia, yeah, I think there's more of an argument for Australia, but I'm not sure that I would say that modern New Zealand batters consistently play spin better. And when you look at it, also, like Conway is not a New Zealand batter, right? Like, as in, he was not bred in, and he didn't learn cricket in New Zealand, even though he plays for New Zealand. So there's another South African who happens to be good against spin that South Africa probably, missed out on, although he never made any runs over there, did he? So yeah, I'm not sure, Vignesh, 100% agree with that one. And that's it. Beautiful. Well, there we go. Our first Champions Trophy scoreboard. Big thanks to Rakshit and Cheyenne and Varun and everyone who came in. We're going to be here for the whole tournament. I don't know if we'll do the scoreboard every single day. School holidays at the moment. I have to look at games and when I'm available and everything else. I'll also be traveling for part of the tournament later on. But we're doing as much as we can. There'll be plenty of content. Subscribe here. Subscribe to the other channel. Subscribe to me on Instagram. Subscribe to me on OnlyFans. Wherever you can find Jared Kimber or Good Areas, subscribe to us. And also remember to head over to goodareas.co. We're going to be posting probably most days of this tournament. Myself, Cheyenne, both doing some writing over there as well. Maybe some of the other team will chip in occasionally when they have something on their mind. So please come on over, support us, support the cricket content makers who support you, how do we support you? Well, we're here, I suppose. Not really sure I thought that one through, but I'll probably see you tomorrow. And that is why Australia decided to drop Shane Keith-Warne. Cricket is a game of strategy, of picking the right players for the right moment, or playing the right shots at the right ball. And Hit Wicket captures that perfectly. In Hit Wicket, you're not just picking a team, you're collecting cricket legends, expanding your squad with each new addition. The more players you have, the more options you have to dominate in any situation. And then comes the real challenge, picking your playing 11. Who are your openers? Run machine and Mr. 360? Do you stack your top order with aggressive batters, or do you build a solid foundation? And what about your bowling attack? Do you go with pace, spin, a mixture of both? We've got the Tasmanian Devil, Jimmy, and boom! The possibilities are endless. The beauty of Hit Wicket is that you need to adapt your lineup to your opponent. They can be powerful, balanced, and technical. Each class has an edge over another. It's a tactical dance where you need to anticipate your opponent's moves and exploit their weaknesses. So if you think you've got the strategic mind to build a championship team, download Hit Wicket and prove it.